The evening sun painted the sky orange as I finally reached home after another long shift. My name is Marcus and I've been serving as a police officer for 12 years. Today had been particularly rough: 3 domestic violence calls, 2 burglaries, and a car accident that left a family shaken. All I wanted was to sink into my backyard jacuzzi and forget the world for a while. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. I changed into my swim shorts and stepped outside to my small but beautiful backyard. The jacuzzi was my pride and joy, a therapeutic escape I'd saved up for months to buy. As I approached the warm, bubbling water, I heard a commotion from next door. "This is absolutely ridiculous," a shrill voice pierced the peaceful evening air. "I've had enough of this nonsense." I recognized that voice immediately. Karen Mitchell, my neighbor for the past 3 years and the source of countless complaints from everyone on our street. She was the type of person who called the homeowners association about grass being half an inch too long and who screamed at teenagers for walking too loudly past her house. I tried to ignore her ranting and slowly lowered myself into the jacuzzi. The warm water immediately began working its magic on my tired muscles. For the first time all day I felt my shoulders relax. "Hey you," Karen's voice suddenly directed at me. I looked up to see her standing at the fence that separated our properties. Her face was red with anger, and her finger was pointed directly at me like a weapon. "Can I help you, Karen?" I asked calmly, though inside I was already preparing for whatever complaint she had this time. "Yes, you can help me. That ridiculous bubbling machine of yours is too loud. I can't enjoy my evening in peace because of that constant noise." I glanced at my jacuzzi. The gentle humming was barely audible, certainly quieter than the traffic on our street or the neighbor's dog that barked every morning at 6. "Karen, it's only 7 in the evening and the sound is very minimal. I work long hours and this helps me relax." "I don't care about your work," she snapped. "I have rights too. That thing is disturbing my peace and I want it turned off right now." "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I'm on my own property and I'm not violating any noise ordinances." Karen's face turned an even deeper shade of red. "We'll see about that. I'm calling the police." The irony wasn't lost on me, but I kept my expression neutral. "That's your right, Karen." She stormed back into her house and I heard her slam the door so hard that I'm surprised it didn't break. I closed my eyes and tried to return to my relaxation, but I knew this wasn't over. Karen never let anything go. 20 minutes later, I heard footsteps approaching my backyard. I opened my eyes to see Officer Janet Rodriguez, one of my colleagues from the station. "Marcus?" she called out, sounding confused. "I got a noise complaint call about this address." I couldn't help but smile. "That would be my neighbor, Karen. She's upset about my jacuzzi." Janet looked at the quietly bubbling water, then back at me. "Seriously? This is what she called about?" "Unfortunately, yes. She does this regularly, calls about everything from people parking legally on the street to children playing in their own yards." Janet shook her head. "I'll file the report as unfounded." "Sorry to bother you, Marcus." "No problem. Thanks for coming out." As Janet left, I saw Karen peering through her window, clearly frustrated that her plan hadn't worked. I waved at her, which only seemed to make her angrier. The next day, I was barely out of my car when Karen appeared at my front door. "This isn't over," she declared. "I've contacted the homeowners association, the city noise department, and I'm prepared to take legal action if necessary. Karen, you have every right to file complaints, but my jacuzzi isn't violating any laws or regulations." "We'll see about that," she said before marching away. Over the following weeks, Karen made good on her threats. She filed complaints with every possible authority. Each time, inspectors came out, measured the sound levels, and concluded that there was no violation. Each time, Karen became more frustrated and more determined. The situation escalated when Karen decided to take matters into her own hands. She began documenting everything, taking photos of me in my jacuzzi, recording the sound levels with her phone, and even timing how long I stayed in the water each evening. "This has become harassment," my wife Sarah said one evening as we watched Karen crouched behind her fence with a camera. "She's taking pictures of you in your own backyard." "I know, but legally, there's not much I can do unless she actually trespasses or does something more serious." "What if she does something crazy?" I should have listened to Sarah's concerns more seriously. The breaking point came on a Friday evening 3 weeks later. I had just finished a particularly difficult day involving a domestic violence case that had turned dangerous. The suspect had threatened me directly and I was emotionally drained. All I wanted was my usual peaceful soak in the jacuzzi. As I settled into the warm water, I noticed Karen wasn't in her usual spying position. For a moment, I felt relieved. Maybe she had finally given up her crusade. I was wrong. The sound of splintering would suddenly fill the air. I looked up to see Karen charging through the fence that separated our properties. She had somehow broken through the wooden barrier and was running directly toward my jacuzzi. "I'll show you peace and quiet," she screamed, her eyes wild with rage. Before I could react, Karen launched herself into the jacuzzi. She landed with a tremendous splash, soaking me and sending water everywhere. The force of her entry was so violent that she immediately began thrashing around, clearly having not thought through her plan. "Karen, what are you doing?" I shouted, trying to steady myself in the churning water. "I'm making a point," she gasped, still flailing. "If I can't have peace, neither can you." That's when I realized Karen couldn't swim very well. Her thrashing wasn't just anger, it was panic. Despite everything she had put me through, my police training kicked in. I couldn't let someone drown in my backyard, even if that someone was Karen. I grabbed her arms and helped her to the side of the jacuzzi. She was coughing and sputtering, her hair plastered to her head, her clothes completely soaked. "Are you okay?" I asked, genuinely concerned despite the circumstances. Karen looked at me with a mixture of embarrassment and continued rage. I was trying to. You needed to learn. Karen, you just committed several crimes. You destroyed my fence, trespassed on my property, and essentially assaulted me by jumping into the jacuzzi while I was in it. The reality of what she had done seemed to hit her all at once. Her face went pale beneath the water dripping from her hair. "I was just trying to make a point," she said weakly. "I understand you're frustrated, but this crosses a line. A serious line." I helped her out of the jacuzzi and handed her a towel. Despite everything, I couldn't help but feel some sympathy for her. She looked pathetic standing there dripping wet, her grand gesture having backfired completely. "Are you going to arrest me?" she asked quietly. I considered her question carefully. As a police officer, I had every right to arrest her. She had committed multiple crimes, and I had witnesses. Several neighbors had come out to see what all the commotion was about. But looking at Karen standing there, soaked and defeated, I realized something. This wasn't really about the jacuzzi. This was about a lonely, frustrated woman who felt like she had no control over her life, so she tried to control everyone else's. "Karen, I want you to go home, get dry, and think about what just happened here. Tomorrow we're going to have a conversation about how to resolve this situation." She nodded silently and walked back toward her house, leaving wet footprints across my yard and through the broken fence. That night, I called my sergeant and explained the situation. He agreed that while I could press charges, there might be a better way to handle things. The next morning, Karen appeared at my door. She was dressed neatly and carrying a plate of cookies. "Officer Marcus," she said formally, "I want to apologize for my behavior yesterday. I realize I was completely out of line." "Thank you, Karen. I appreciate that. Can we sit down and talk?" We sat on my front porch, and for the first time in 3 years, Karen actually listened. "I've been thinking all night about what you said," she began. "About this not really being about the jacuzzi. I think you might be right. What do you think it's really about?" Karen was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'm lonely. My husband died 2 years ago, my kids live across the country, and I don't really have any friends. I think I started focusing on everyone else's business because I didn't want to focus on how empty my own life had become." Her honesty surprised me. "That must be very difficult." "It is. But that doesn't excuse what I did. I destroyed your fence, invaded your privacy, and made everyone on this street miserable with my complaints. What do you think we should do about it?" "I want to make it right. I'll pay for the fence repair and I'll stop filing complaints about your jacuzzi. But I have a request." "What's that?" "I know this sounds strange after everything I've put you through, but would you be willing to help me find some better ways to spend my time? Maybe some volunteer opportunities or community groups." I was impressed by her willingness to take responsibility and make changes. "I think I can help with that." Over the following weeks, Karen transformed from the neighborhood menace into someone completely different. She began volunteering at the local animal shelter, joined a book club at the library, and started taking swimming lessons at the community pool. She also made good on her promise to repair my fence. But instead of just fixing the broken section, she replaced the entire fence with a beautiful cedar barrier that actually enhanced both our properties. The most surprising change came about a month later when Karen knocked on my door one evening. "Marcus, I have something to ask you," she said, looking nervous. "What's that?" I was wondering, would it be okay if I joined you in the jacuzzi sometime? I mean, not jumping in uninvited like before, but maybe as neighbors? I've been feeling so much better lately, and I think the warm water might help with my arthritis. I looked at this woman who had been my nemesis for so long and saw someone who had genuinely changed. I think that would be fine, Karen. Sarah and I were actually thinking about having a neighborhood barbecue next weekend. You're welcome to come. I'd like that very much. The barbecue was a success. Karen brought her famous potato salad and spent the evening chatting with neighbors who had previously crossed the street to avoid her. She even helped clean up afterward. As the evening wound down and the last guests left, Karen approached me one final time. Marcus, I want you to know that jumping into your jacuzzi was the stupidest thing I've ever done. But it was also the wake-up call I needed. I was so focused on being angry at everyone else that I forgot how to be happy myself. We all need wake-up calls sometimes, Karen. The important thing is what we do with them. I've learned that being a good neighbor means building people up, not tearing them down. And I've learned that police officers are people too, with their own struggles and need for peace. 6 months later, Karen and I had become unlikely friends. She would occasionally join Sarah and me for evening soaks in the jacuzzi, and we would talk about everything from gardening to her volunteer work at the shelter. The other neighbors gradually warmed up to the new Karen as well. She organized a neighborhood watch program, started a community garden, and even began hosting monthly potluck dinners. One evening, as we sat in the jacuzzi watching the sunset, Karen said something that really stuck with me. You know, Marcus, I spent so many years being angry at the world that I forgot how beautiful it could be. That night I jumped in here, I thought I was teaching you a lesson. But you're the one who taught me the most important lesson of all. What's that? That sometimes the best way to get revenge on someone who wrongs you is to show them kindness instead. You could have arrested me, could have made my life miserable, but instead you helped me become a better person. That's not revenge, Karen. That's just being human. Maybe that's the point. Maybe being human is the best revenge of all. As I look back on that chaotic evening when Karen crashed into my jacuzzi, I realize it was one of the most important nights of both our lives. She learned that anger and control don't bring happiness, and I learned that sometimes the people who seem the most difficult are just the ones who need help the most. The jacuzzi still bubbles peacefully every evening. But now, instead of being a source of conflict, it's become a place where neighbors become friends and where two very different people learn to understand each other. And Karen? She's been taking those swimming lessons for 6 months now. She's gotten pretty good at it. Good enough that she'll never need to be rescued from a jacuzzi again. Though she's always welcome to join me in mine by invitation this time. Sometimes the best stories don't end with someone getting what they deserve. Sometimes they end with everyone getting what they need.